was going to say, I don't think the music's going off. I love our intro, but...
I don't think the music's going off. I love our intro, but...
Hold on. Yeah, turn off the audio on the computer.
Hold on. Yeah, turn off the audio on the computer. Yeah, turn off the audio on...
Go ahead and click out of this.
Go ahead and click out of this.
Yeah. Check. All right. Nothing says live show like screwing up until you're live. So
I looked at you like...
Yeah, and hold on. Let's rewind this real quick before we get in and tell everybody why this is turning out to be such a mess. Thank you for joining us at the Casuals MMA podcast. You can join us most places podcasts are found: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartMedia, Podbean, and YouTube. And remember to follow us on our Facebook page and Instagram account for your daily MMA updates. Find links and information in the details, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and at the Casuals MMA. Exciting most of all, we are now a part of the new podcast network out of South Florida, FanstreamSports.com, Tampa Bay's real sports podcasting network, featuring the JP Show, which airs live from 3 to 6 p.m. weekdays on 8:20 a.m., 98.3 FM, and 96.7 FM. Make sure to visit FanstreamSports.com and also download the app on Android and Apple. They have lots of great shows, from the JP Show to Sports Caffeine, Loose Cans Podcast, and now the Casuals MMA. Whew, that's a mouthful to say there. And by the way, for the JP Show, a great show. JP's funny. He's a great character, and I love his insight. But we're also on there on Tuesdays around 3:45, 4 o'clock if you want to catch us on there just for like a quick 15-20 minute blurb. Or you can like listen to our segments on the FanStream Sports if you go to listen live. So you'll notice I'm 2 men down and a woman up on this podcast.
My microphone isn't working.
Go ahead, talk again. No, say something again.
Yep,
your mic's working. Your mic's working. She wants to make sure she can be heard from any and all. Yeah, two men down, 1 woman up, because if you try to tune in on Saturday or Sunday, whatever it was, you'll notice that I screwed up the audio again. It's always something. I'm telling you, like when you're starting to do this stuff live, you learn. It's always something because we change it up all the time. Like Sunday was the first time that we decided to go fully remote, so we were using Skype, we were using a new program, and the problem is like then you have your audio going through 3 or 4 different channels. It's a nightmare. We live and we learn, but either way I wanted to make sure that Sean, Dan, and myself, we worked hard to preview this weekend's UFC 250 event. So I just want to kind of recap about what we discussed, as well as give the fans kind of the update on and preparations on what to watch, because it should be a great card this coming weekend. So Whitney is going to be my production manager today, even though she screwed up the audio at the very start.
I never said it was perfect.
It's the first time. You're fine.
I get so close.
I'm gonna dock a little bit of your pay for sure, 100%. But she so graciously volunteered. She's like, you need to stop screwing up. You're doing
it's embarrassing. We're not strong as a unit right now.
No, we are not at all. Man, I lost my train of thought there. Where was I?
Because you were looking at me.
Yeah, okay. I'm not looking that way anymore. I swear, I'm done. I'm over. It's over. My camera's this way anyways. Yeah, so she got upset with me continually screwing up the audio, and she's like, you're doing too much between the talking, podcasting, and then trying to do all the technical stuff on the backside all at the same time. So she's like, I'm going to run the technical crap and make fun of you while you do your show. So
yes.
And it's going to be a test for me, because this is the first time I'm doing a podcast without like the feedback from Sean or from Dan. So it's going to be a little weird running this by myself. But anyways, we'll kind of get into the UFC news and notes. I have a quick news segment called Dumbass Tweets. Just people say crazy stuff on the internet, man. It's just about pointing them out. So this one's not too crazy. I went nice. Everybody's got enough to deal with between everything going on in 2020. Good Lord. Anybody keeping count? This is like, no? No. Okay. Whitney's not keeping count.
Sorry.
She's not even paying attention.
I'm
All right.
not.
So let's start with some of the biggest news, and that was after Henry Cejudo had defended his title against Dominic Cruz. He just up and left the UFC. Says, I'm done. It's over. I vacate my belt. I'm calling it quits. I'm quitting while I'm ahead. And the UFC waited no time to strip him of that belt, which was crazy. I don't think I've ever seen the UFC just take anybody out of the rankings, out off of UFC.com as fast as they did with Henry Cejudo. So they must be a little salty. That's all I'm saying. They must be a little upset that their new superstar just was like calling it quits right after he beats Dominic Cruz in what was, a somewhat controversial ending to that fight, with people arguing that the ref stopped it too early. So, I mean, granted, I still think Henry Cejudo was winning up to that point, but you never know. And then on top of that, we have John Jones this week talking about him vacating the light heavyweight belt. I mean, a man on top. I originally thought that he was just saying this to get some negotiation leverage, right? Because he's wanting to fight Francis Ngannou. He offered it. He threw it up on Twitter and said, I'm willing to fight the heavyweight, but I'm going to need to be compensated well. I thought that was just, and it might still be him just trying to negotiate his contract, trying to get that money. Supposedly he was asking for $3 million to show. That's Conor McGregor money. Typically, if John Jones didn't have all the problems outside of the cage as he does, or he has, historically, I would say he has that leverage because he is their biggest superstar right now. I would argue that, what's $3 million? Look at their first pay-per-view that they went live. What was it? UFC 248, I believe, or 248. The 240. Yeah, I think it was 248 was the first one back in May or whatever. They sold over 700,000 pay-per-views at $65 a piece. Granted, they're not making gate right now, but that's huge numbers. 700,000 pay-per-view buys at $65. That's over $45.5 million that they're making. They're saying if they can't get John Jones and Francis Ngannou, that they're not going to be able to make that money back. Get out of here, man. For me, $3 million is nothing to show for a guy like John Jones, even Francis Ngannou, a guy that's as entertaining as him, knocking people out like he is right now. He's on a rampage. I think he's on a 4-fight win streak right now, at least with first round KOs. It's insane. And he's knocking out the best guys in the division, not named Stipe Miocic or Daniel Cormier, but I'm not really counting him since Daniel's really only fought Stipe since he went back up to heavyweight. So we'll see if John Jones is for real about relinquishing his belt, stepping away, maybe even going to another division. He's talked about going to Bellator. Ryan Bader came out and said, I would love to introduce him and into Bellator and fight him again in a rematch. That would be interesting to see how that fight would go. John Jones handled him easily in their first fight. Easily. It wasn't even a contest. But, Ryan Bader's had a lot of success outside the UFC. He's gone on. He's done his thing. He's won the light. He's a double champ over there. He won the light heavyweight belt and the heavyweight belt through through their tournaments. So, it'd be an interesting prospect. He can make decent money over there. So we'll see. I don't know.
You never know.
You just don't know.
You just don't know.
Do you have any input on that, Whitney?
So much.
It's
too much to cover.
That Ryan Bader guy. How about that John Jones?
John Jones.
And all those DUIs.
All those people.
Even more interesting, I think this was last week, Conor McGregor and Anderson the Spider Silva verbally agreed to fight on Twitter. That's insane. You're talking about an absolute legend of the sport and the UFC's biggest pay-per-view sale in Conor McGregor, and I was talking about the legend being Anderson Silva, potentially getting matched up. Now, both those guys get $3 million to show, if you ask me. That's going to do, I'm willing to bet that would do almost $1 million. Especially, I guess McGregor usually does $1 million when he shows up anyways, but Anderson, so that's such a weird matchup to me, though, because Conor McGregor's only 5'9". Anderson Silva's 6'1". But I will say Conor McGregor has a ridiculous reach for a guy that's only 5'9". He has like a 73, 74 inch reach. I think Anderson Silva's maybe around 80, maybe a little less. So, but this actually brings up my dumbass tweet of the day. Dumbass tweet. User so-and-so. I'm not calling anybody out on here because I'm a nice guy like that. I'm just going to call them out for the stupid stuff that they say. Conor would make fast work of Anderson Silva.
Fast work.
That's a dumbass tweet right there. That is a dumbass tweet. Let me tell you something. Anderson Silva, sure, he has had a few stoppages in the last few years in the first round. But they were because he broke his shin in half, okay? And then he also tore a ligament in his knee from a leg kick that he received from Jared Cannonier. So he hasn't like legitimately got stopped by punches from guys in the in the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions. Sure, he got stopped by Weidman, but nobody else has done that. Israel Adesanya is an insanely experienced kickboxer, and he was barely able to tag, which he's taller than Anderson too, and has a longer reach. He's 6'3", and I think he has like a 2 or 3 inch reach advantage on Anderson. And he had trouble tagging him during their fight. Get out of here with that. Daniel Cormier couldn't put him away. Off of, I think Anderson Silva literally had like 3 days of training coming off of a surgery and offered to step in and fight Daniel Cormier. Cormier couldn't finish him. You think Conor McGregor is really going to run through Anderson? I think the thing I forgot to put on here is he said in the first round. Get out of here. Not to mention, that's not even their fight styles. Conor McGregor and Anderson Silva, they like to feel each other out. You know what I mean? Like, they like to feel each other out for about a round. They like to dance, reach, touch, feel out how their opponent's doing, what their reactions are going to be from feints, etc., etc. The real action for those fighters typically doesn't start until, a round or two, or the second round. What about it?
Where do I go to find that?
Oh, you could just type it back in here. My production manager is asking me production management stuff. I'm still in charge of this whole thing. CEO. CEO. You have a microphone.
You can type it in right there.
No, up here. Just hit the plus sign. There you go. Okay. It's simple math, Whitney.
So minus sign.
Oh man. Yeah, but I mean that's the only time. The only time. I'm sorry. Anderson Silva had 2 other first round stoppages in his career. Okay, fights.
Sorry. Anderson Silva had 2 other first round stoppages in.
Just testing things.
Yeah, if you hit the microphone up there, that'll stop it next time from the volume coming on.
I'm learning.
Yes.
Don't judge.
Oh, actually, and you can hit the mute button on the keyboard too.
Jesus.
CEO shit, man.
So much
CEO shit. Yeah, imagine doing that and trying to run the show too and host it. Okay. Yeah, so he's only had 2 other first rounds or fights finished in the first round in his career early on. You have to go back all the way to 2003 to when he lost by a triangle choke in the first round. I mean, that's 2003. And then the other one was when he knocked out Yushin Okami with an up kick. What was it? Battle at the Rock? I forget what the name of that tournament. That was actually a relatively popular tournament. There were some good UFC fighters over there. But anyways, yeah, knocked out Yushin Okami with an up kick. But it was a legal up kick because Okami had 1 knee on the ground. So those are all of his first round finishes in his career. In his 44 fight career. You really think that Conor McGregor is going to blitz him? I doubt that. Dumbass tweet of the day. Real quick note, Edson Barboza is talking about leaving the UFC. He had a controversial decision loss in his featherweight debut. He's getting tired of it. He hung around the lightweight division at the top for a long time, but he couldn't beat the top guys. Wrestling is his weakness. But then again, Justin Gaethje also ran through him too. But who hasn't Justin Gaethje run through at this point after his demolishment of Tony Ferguson? But it would be interesting. I like Edson Barboza a lot. A lot of people like him. He's a highlight reel waiting to happen. It would be interesting to see him go into like a Bellator or something and see how dominant he could be. I mean, he's not a young guy anymore. He's like 33, 34. I mean, you're coming on the back end of your career, of your physical prime. You need to go and do what you need to do, boo-boo. Go over there. If you need to go over to Bellator, make some money, get a belt. Do your thing, man. I'm all about that. And then the other news, too, Fight Island is finally going to be ready in July. I'm not keeping my fingers crossed for that one, but because we've heard that it was going to be ready in May. Then we heard it was going to be ready in June, and now it's going to be ready in July. But, I mean, I guess it's got to be ready sometime. So, right?
One day.
Fight Island?
Fight Island, baby.
We're going to have our honeymoon that we've been waiting 3 years to take on Fight Island?
Yes, finally.
Perfect.
I can love you again.
You can love me again. Why? You gonna hit me or something? Is that what you're threatening? People are listening to this.
Say that.
I want you. No. I want you to know. People are listening to this. They hear you. It's recording too. So
Good.
even if they don't hear you live, they're gonna be listening to this. Okay. Yep. My wife likes to hit me. Okay. So one of the big fights on Fight Island that they are talking about right now is talking about the bantamweight title being vacated. Jose Aldo, who's coming off of a controversial, mind you, but a loss in his featherweight debut, is fighting Peter Yan, who's very deserving for the now vacant bantamweight title. I have mixed feelings with Jose Aldo doing it. I mean, you know, he's had a long career. He's proven he was a featherweight champ between his WEC and UFC career for a decade. And, you know, he's always fought the best of the best. So I see that they're kind of giving him benefit of the doubt here. But just coming off that loss so soon to Marias, I don't think he's necessarily that deserving. If anything, they missed out on an opportunity. We have 3 great bantamweight matchups on this card, all right, on Saturday. And then if you add that in next month, you have a great tournament. I don't know why Dana White is not taking an opportunity and calling this a like a small bantamweight tournament. It's not all in one night, granted, but I mean, that makes it extremely exciting, and he's missing out on this opportunity. It's very surprising. That's what I would have done. He has probably 5 or 6, if you include Marias, who I don't think is scheduled to fight anybody currently. He has 5 or 6 legit guys that are good contenders for that bantamweight belt. So I don't know. I would have set that up, but Dana hasn't been big on setting up the tournament style stuff. So let's see other news and notes. We talked about John Jones, poor judging. I don't even want to touch on that right now. I wrote it down. I wanted to talk about it initially, but I just don't have it in me. I can't talk about the poor judging anymore. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. I don't know what the solution is. People are saying the 10-8 point, because right now, if you don't know, the system historically has been 10-9. If you win the round, you get 10 points. If you lose the round, you get 9 points, and that's all in the judge's eyes. Then they moved to a 10-8 scoring system, so that way if someone's extremely dominant for a whole round, but they get through the round, 10-8. So you get an extra point on one side, right? But right. Thank you for agreeing. Yes. I don't know. Until we see a good solution, I don't even want to talk about poor judging anymore, especially after the judges came out after. Okay, so this is a quick story. I think I talked about this on the podcast before. So after John Jones and Dominic Reyes, the judges all gathered in Vegas for a conference, and they had a meeting to rewatch that fight, and John McCarthy was training the judges on, what to look for in a fight. And essentially, what some of the reporters asked them coming out of that was, who won that fight through what you saw? Dominic Reyes did. What? I would be so pissed if I was Dominic Reyes. Oh, and the funny thing too, the 3 judges that actually scored that fight weren't there at that conference. But all the other judges, when they came out of that, they're like, yeah, from our assessment, from our learning clinic, Dominic Reyes won. Ugh, that pisses me off, but whatever.
It pisses me off too.
It does. I know it does. Yeah, it does. It hurts Whitney so much. She tosses and turns at night.
Pretty much. Can't sleep.
Yep. Well, you can't sleep because you let the dog sleep on top of you. So There's also that.
All right. No judging.
No. Okay.
We're in a safe space.
Safe space.
Safe space.
There are no safe spaces. Not here. Not anymore. All right, let's get into UFC 250. June 6th. That's what's happening. It's going to be at the UFC's brand new Apex Center. I think they've really only hosted Dana White's Contender Series and Tuesday night fights at the Apex Center, but if you don't know, it's their new headquarters out of Vegas. They spent a ton of money, I think $100 million on this place, at least renovating it. I don't even know if that's what they bought it for. I know they spent at least $100 million renovating the place. It's essentially their headquarters. It's a training facility. They have the cage in there, which is 5 feet shorter than a normal cage. Kind of weird. If you're setting it up and building it, why are you making it shorter than the cage you bring everywhere else? But whatever. It has a production studio so they can broadcast the fights, all that stuff. It looks like an amazing amazing building. It's insane. And then they have their administrative offices and all that stuff there too. So that's where the UFC's having their fights. So they're saving money to me if they're training in their, if they're having all the fights in their building, since they're not able to make gate right now with the whole COVID situation. So that's a win-win for them. Good for them. Great facilities too, and it should be a little bit more comfortable for the fighters in the U.S. that are coming through and watching. So, anyways, it's UFC 250, Apex Center, 130,000 square foot. I think I touched on all that stuff. Huge building. Let's get into the fights. There really wasn't anything. I remember Dan, Sean, and I kind of went through this a little bit. There was nothing really on the prelims to really watch. Maybe a few like lower level fighters, some people who watch coming up, but we like to focus mostly on the main event the main card.
I want to say one thing though. I understand the main event. That's the main reason why everybody watches it. But I actually like watching the people that try to come up because I feel like they work extra because they have to prove themselves. They have to truly prove themselves. So I feel like they're a little more fun.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's me though. That's literally just
no,
me.
for sure. But the thing is, I'm just like from an analytical standpoint. So here's something that you have to understand. When I know for me personally, like when I'm going back and looking at fights to analyze a matchup, I'm watching at least the last 3 fights of both fighters. And the reason why I watch the last 3 in particular is typically most fighters that aren't champs, because champs fight a lot less, fight about 3 times a year, okay? Mm-hmm. Or 3 fights is going to be in a year and a half time, right? So I typically like to go back, watch 3 fights. I can really analyze them because people are creatures of habit, especially athletes are creature of habit. You are what you train. So it doesn't really necessarily do you good to go back and watch a guy from 5 years ago, but if you're watching him from the past year, then you can see his new habits and you can link the matchups. The problem with the undercard is, though, a lot of times, especially when they go international or anything, they're picking up a lot of local guys, guys that you've never seen before, or guys you don't have video on. So it's really hard to go through and look for their fights and analyze them properly and know when those fights happen, know the context, know their competition. So at least for us, we use what we have for research, which is, like UFCstats.com, record books, all that stuff. But it's a little bit harder to go through and do those guys on the undercard. To your point, though, fantastic to watch. I know Sean does too. We turn on Fight Pass. That's the early prelims that usually start around 5 or 6 o'clock, depending on what time the events are. And to your point, like those guys are fighting for something. They're not getting paid money. They're not getting paid. Like they're getting paid maybe $8,000 to show up to fight people on TV. $8,000. That's not a lot of money. I mean, especially considering like if you're this low level, you have one terrible showing, you're already cut from the UFC. There you go. There's your payday. Like you get your $8,000 for showing up. Thanks, peace.
Right.
UFC contract ripped up. Now, granted, they usually give you 2 or 3 fights, but just saying, either way.
No, I
right.
Gotcha.
So, but to your point, yeah, I mean, it's incredible to watch. I mean, look at the fight that made the UFC: Stephan Bonner versus Forrest Griffin. Incredible fight because both those guys were fighting for a contract. At that time, Dana White wasn't handing out contracts to every single fighter, because it was UFC 1. They were under the impression one guy was getting a 6-figure contract. Mm-hmm. Both those guys fought hard as hell, and then luckily for both of them, they both ended up getting 6-figure contracts. So, win-win situation. But let's get into this main card. Let's start talking about it. Great matchups. There's 3 bantamweight matchups in the main card. I know people typically don't let, because of the US's history with boxing and the heavyweight and the heavier divisions, people don't like watching the lighter people. I'm telling you, watch bantamweights, man. Watch bantamweights, watch featherweights. They're incredible because those guys keep a fast pace for 3 to 5 rounds. They have incredible technique. It's lightning in a bottle, these guys. So you got to watch them. I mean, they're super fast. The thing with heavyweights is, I think that you don't have as much control over your body. So those guys tend to, they gas out fast and, their technique might be a little shabby, because but I mean, that's the trade-off when you're 6'5", 265 pounds, you're trading off that technique, that very crisp, sharp, fast technique for all that power that you're going to have. Whereas on the flip side, yeah, sure, you don't have all that power as a bantamweight, but you're making up for that with speed and technique. So it's a trade-off. But
right.
The first one that's starting is 2 non-ranked fighters in the bantamweight division, but I feel one of these guys is going to shoot up in the top 10 if he wins. So it's Eddie Wineland versus Sean Sugar O'Malley. He's a star in waiting. And they're giving him a veteran guy in Eddie Wineland to kind of test him and see if he's ready for that big step up in competition, Sean O'Malley. So he was out for 2 years. He had a number of run-ins, I think, with pot, and then the other one was a banned substance, which I think they ended up finding him like not guilty or whatever they want to call it. So Sean O'Malley ended up taking 2 years off. He came back. He had a great outing in his last fight. I think he finished it in the second round. Looked fantastic. Eddie Wineland's a very experienced guy. He's 24-13-1 with 15 TKOs. He's been in the UFC/WEC for a long time. I mean, he's tied 6th most fights at the bantamweight division. Tied 2nd for knockdowns with Cody Garbrandt, so that's a hell of a class to be in there. Former WEC champ. And, I mean, he's fought the best of the best. He's fought Uriah Faber. He's fought Benavidez. His last 4 wins came via, knockout. He's also... but the problem is, okay, so that's what it was. His last 4 wins have come via TKO, but he's also split his last 8 fights and he's gone 4-4. So he's had a little rough run in here, and they're giving him, I think, a good competition in Sean O'Malley. It's like Eddie is more like a gatekeeper to that top 10. I feel like at bantamweight. Are
you the gatekeeper?
Are you the gatekeeper? Yes.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Man, you have a way of throwing off my rhythm, I swear. It's in a good way, though. You distract me in a good way. So, where was I? Oh, yeah. And then you got Sean O'Malley, who's 11-0 in his pro career. 7 TKOs, 1 sub, and he's only gone to the decision 3 times. He's had 2 performance of the nights already in the UFC. He hasn't had a lot of fights in the UFC, so that's impressive. He trains out of MMA Lab. And he's a purple belt under Gracie Jiu-Jitsu via John Crouch at MMA Lab. So he is a purple belt. He has great jiu-jitsu, but he prefers to be on his feet. He has this very funky karate style. He likes to bounce in and out. Funny enough, he doesn't even have a karate background. He just kind of adapted it as he learned MMA. But it makes him all that much more interesting. He's a great fighter. I think he's got great hands, great feet, or great kicks. Great feet. Wonderful feet. If you ever watch him dance, damn, that guy. Wonderful feet. Tap dance all day. Tap dance all day in the octagon. I think that this will be an interesting fight just to see him actually fight a very experienced guy in Eddie Wineland and see where he's going to be at. Eddie Wineland's a great all-around fighter. He's well developed in all areas of MMA. Sean O'Malley's biggest advantage here with his striking is the fact that he's like 5'11" in this division. I mean, you're talking 135 pounds. These guys are typically like 5'5", 5'6", and he's like one of 2, maybe 3 guys that are like 5'11", and he uses his range very well. So, I'm expecting him to put on a show. I'm hoping he puts on a show because he's going to be the next star in that division. So, looking back at it, Dan and Sean, my co-host that could not be here tonight, they had also picked O'Malley, so I think we actually agreed on a few of these early ones. What are you smiling at over there?
Because Viv said feet pics.
Who said that?
Viviana.
Oh.
What's up, girl?
Giving shout-outs. Feet pics.
It's pretty funny.
Is that insinuating like we're taking pictures of people's feet and stuff?
No, we're talking about the fighter, about his feet.
Yeah, I know. All right, do you want me to take pictures of his feet during the fight?
Yes.
Okay.
That's number 1 what she was asking.
He's gonna tap dance all over that ass, and then it just.
So.
All right, we're gonna move on from there. I think I touched on all the points, and he's gonna tap dance all over Eddie Wineland's ass. So we're gonna take a picture of his feet. It's probably the only place on his body he doesn't have a tattoo as well, so whatever. Who knows? All right. Actually, can you see on there? Oh yeah, I didn't have you pull up the odds. The odds should be relatively updated. I updated them yesterday.
Do something? Jesus.
Yeah, don't even worry about that.
Everything system down.
She's broken. I don't even know what to do with her.
What did you do?
I tried replacing her batteries. She just doesn't stop.
Oh, it never stops. I exhaust myself.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Nope, I'm good. So glad I brought you on the show. So good. No regrets. So the second fight on the card. This one, I'm very excited to see Neil Magny. He originally did not like, he wasn't really living up to his hype. He came in with a ton of hype to the UFC. He started hot. He kind of fell flat for a little bit with a pair of losses, or a couple losses there in the middle of his career, but he's been in the UFC for a while now at this point, or at least he's had a ton of fights. So he looked on in his last fight against Jing Liang, who's a tough fighter in the welterweight division, and Neil looks like he's turning it on, and I want to see him do that against Anthony Rocco Martin. Both these guys are not ranked in welterweight, but welterweight is so deep right now. That division's insane. I mean, if you look at from bantamweight, lightweight, welterweight, those divisions are just nuts with just competition, just waiting to fight for the belt. But either way, Neil Magny, he's 22-7 at this point in his career. He's huge at welterweight. He's 6'3" at 170 pounds. He has a 65. No, that's not right. Oh, he has a 6.5 inch reach advantage. I can't even read my own notes sometimes. He has a 6.5 inch reach advantage against Anthony Rocco Martin. Insane. To my point, Neil Magny's had 21 fights in the UFC. He's only behind Matt Brown, GSP, Josh Koscheck, Thiago Alves, and Matt Hughes in welterweight division for a number of fights. That's insane. That's good company to be in, except for Josh Koscheck because I don't like him. He's tied fourth for having a 7-fight win streak. That's not current, but he had that before. Talking about him coming in with a lot of hype. He's fourth in significant strikes landed. That's awesome. He's only behind GSP, Robbie, and Thiago. That's again great company to be in. And he fights for Elevation Fight Team. So you got guys like Alistair Overeem, Drew Dober, and Justin Gaethje, Curtis Blades, Corey Sandhagen, who also fights later on this card. Great freaking team, by the way. And then on the other side, you got Anthony Rocco Martin, 6 foot tall. He's 17-5. He's had quite a few UFC fights too. He's had 14 UFC fights. He's been around for a while. He's primarily a BJJ guy. He's from America. He fights out of American Top Team. He's a BJJ black belt. And he's fought a few notable names, but he's never came out. He doesn't have a notable win though. Like, he's fought some big name guys, but he doesn't have the big win. So I think Anthony's going to be trying to get inside on Neil. Neil's striking looks so crisp. His jab looked incredible. And then that is even that much more scary at welterweight when you consider he's 6'3" and he has that extremely long reach advantage, 6.5 inches. You're looking at half a foot. You're not going to be able to get in on that guy because you're going to be getting jabbed. And he moves so well in and out, in and out. He has great footwork. Don't believe me, take some pictures. He has some great footwork. He's in and out. So I think it's going to be really tough for Anthony to get a hold of him. If he does get a hold of Neil, he's going to have to really press him up against the cage and try and overpower him. So I'm going to be really interested. But the thing is, Neil's not bad on the ground either, man. He's got some skills off his back, and he's shown historically that he's a good wrestler. So to me, this is a fight for him to win. This is a fight where I think coming off of his last performance, which was really impressive, it's a way for the UFC to say, here's your opportunity to shoot into the top 15 of the welterweight division with a big win against Anthony Martin. Show us what you got, kid. Please. Show us. So, and to that point too, Dan, Sean, and myself, we all had Magny picks for this one. So
good to know.
Yep. If you guys have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, hit us up on our Facebook Live or our Twitch Live.
If you have any inputs, any kind of question you want to ask Ryan or me randomly for no reason, I'll answer them. So just let me know. Write it up. I got you.
She said all of that needed to be said. So,
Mike,
boo boo. I
Mike.
got you. I got you. Sorry, just needed that coffee sip. All right. So, third fight. Why this isn't the co-main event blows my mind. You have, so this is one of the bantamweight fights that we talked about, obviously, since I said there was 3 on the main card. Aljamain Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen. You're looking at the number 2 and number 4 guy in this division, respectively. All right. Why they're not on the co-main event is beyond. This is going to be right here to me. This is going to be fight of the night. Sean said the same thing. This is going to be fight of the night. Aljamain Sterling, Corey Sandhagen. They're both insane fighters. Aljamain Sterling comes from the Long Island Matt Serra's camp. So where Ali Aquina and Chris Weidman train out of, again with their coach being Matt Serra, super entertaining. He has a great fight style. And then Corey Sandhagen, I'm going to read you some of the numbers here for striking, but he has been on. He's the other guy in this division that's 5'11", like I mentioned with Sugar Sean O'Malley earlier. He's tall as hell for this division. Even Aljamain Sterling looks tall for this division. He's only 5'7", but he's long though. He has. Actually, here, let's get. I want to throw this stat out here real quick because it's funny. So you're looking at a 4-inch differential in height. Corey Sandhagen being the taller one. Who do you think has the reach advantage?
Shit, were you asking me something?
Yep, I know you were monitoring. All right, let me ask you this again.
Okay.
All right,
go ahead.
You have two guys in this division that are fighting right now. Okay.
Fighting.
One of them is 4 inches taller. 4 inches taller. Do you think there's any way that the shorter guy has a reach advantage?
No, yes.
He has a 1-inch reach advantage.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Crazy long arms,
and the way
man.
they're fighting?
So, yeah, I know you're just saying words, but that actually is 100% true.
Words.
You're just like, yeah. This guy.
Oh my god.
Of course. Like who? Of course. But you're 100. Guess what? When it's a multiple choice option, you have a 50-50 shot of getting it right, and you got it right, boo boo. So
I got it.
you got a 50-50 shot right there.
You don't need college.
Don't need that college algebra. I took it thrice. Oh man. That's so sad.
Aren't you happy that I'm here?
So happy. No, but seriously, Aljamain Sterling has a 1-inch reach advantage. That's insane to me. Guys with long arms like that, it just blows my mind how like you can be. Conor McGregor is a guy like that too. So disproportionate. It's crazy, but it helps a guy that strikes like the way he does. So. Anyways, going into this one, Corey is tied for 4th in all UFC for volume of strikes landed per minute. He's like at 7.5 significant strikes landed per minute, people. That is freaking nuts. To put that in perspective, Tyrone Woodley, when he fought this past weekend, he fought Gilbert Burns. He averaged in 5 rounds less than 5.5 strikes per round.
Wow.
Landed. That's embarrassing for starters. But either way, and that fight was mostly on the feet, so that's why I also use that as reference. But you're talking about 7.5 per minute. That is insane. He wasn't in the lead at one point, I think, after his last fight. Dropped down just a tad bit, but I mean, we're only talking about like a fraction of a percentage difference between the 1st and 4th spot, respectively. So Aljamain, though, on the flip side, is 10th for striking differential, 2 spots behind Corey. So Corey's still ahead on him on this one. So quick number, 2.98 striking differential for Corey versus 2.90 striking differential for Corey for Aljamain Sterling. So what the striking differential means? That means how many strikes are you landing compared to how many strikes you're taking and getting landed on you. So obviously the bigger the differential, that means that's good because that means you're landing more than you're taking. So those are great numbers for both these guys. Sterling trains out of, I had already mentioned that. Sterling, though, even though his stand-up style has kind of been like at the forefront of his last few fights because of his new developed striking style that kind of resembles Ali Aquina's. Obviously, I mean, they're training partners anyways. But he's a wrestler at heart. He's a 2-time Division III All-American with a record of 87-27. I forgot what college he was at. It was some small college. I don't remember. But still, I mean, 2-time Division III All-American. That's awesome. That's amazing. So, and then also with Sterling, he's 10-3 in the UFC with 2 of those losses coming via close split decision losses to a Sun Sao who's fighting in the next fight and Brian Caraway. So that's pretty damn impressive too. On the flip side, Corey's won multiple World Kickboxing Association titles, and he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. He comes out of the same camp as Neil Magny that I had mentioned earlier, Elevation Fight Camp. But, man, these guys are so well-rounded. That's what gets me super excited for this fight. Granted, I prefer the striking. I prefer Muay Thai, kickboxing, stuff like that. But when you see some great high-level jiu-jitsu, that's fun. That is freaking fun. So, to see these guys go to battle is going to be a ton of fun. I think personally that Corey Sandhagen is going to come out on top, and the only reason is because if you look at the difference between these guys, you know, they have great wrestling capabilities. They have great ground capabilities. Their stand-up's both great. What's the great equalizer there is height. Granted, I know I said before Aljamain Sterling has the longer inch reach advantage, but you know what? When you're talking about a 4-inch difference in height, that's still a lot of ground that you have to cover and make up to be able to get inside on somebody. You know, irregardless of the reach advantage, we're still talking about the height and hopping in and out of that zone. So to me, Corey Sandhagen, he can also be patient when needed. He picks his shots so well. That's why he can land 7.5 shots a minute on average for every round. He's had a bunch of fights in the UFC at this point, or he's had a number of fights in the UFC. So obviously that's very consistent at this point. So that means that, you know, that's just a testament to how good he is in his striking game. So to me, I think he's going to pick his shots really well against Aljamain. I think he's going to stay along the outside. He's going to try and negate Sterling's wrestling. I think this is going to be a close fight, and I think this is going to go to decision. 3-round battle for Corey Sandhagen. I think this was actually the first one. Yes, Dan actually picked Aljamain on this one, which, again, super close fight. I would not be the least bit surprised if Aljamain won. He's a great freaking fighter. And then Sean and I both picked Sandhagen. So the thing with the other thing, too, with Aljamain in this one is he's taking a risk here. He's been the number 2 guy for, I think, at least a year. He's been the number 2 guy in this division, and he's watched Marlon Moraes take a shot. He's watched Jose Aldo go and take a shot at Marlon Moraes. Granted, he's watched Dominic Cruz come out of retirement and go take a title shot, all while he's sitting in that number 2 position. I'd be pissed if I was him. And not to mention, he's taken on such a tough challenge in Corey Sandhagen, who's just been a rising star at bantamweight. Man, you know, all props to Aljamain. He's an animal, and I would not be the least bit disappointed if he won this, because to me, because he's been sitting on that sideline looking in, he deserves that title shot. So either way, I think this is going to be fight of the night. This one's going to be entertaining as hell. So check it out. To me, this one should have been the co-main event. So the co-main event is Rafael Sunsao and Cody Garbrandt. Real quick, the reason why I was thinking about this, because Sean and I were talking about it. Dan was, putting his 2 cents in about this one. And I was thinking about it afterwards, and I think the reason why, excuse me, that they didn't move Aljamain Sterling and Corey Sandhagen to the co-main event was because then they'd have to pay those guys more. Because then they're in a premium spot in the bantamweight, or in the pay-per-view, right? They're in that. So the thing with MMA and the way you pay these guys is it's a little bit weird. Like, once these guys start getting into a certain pay grade, they stay there. So I think the UFC is trying to save themselves some money and not pay these guys all the money that they do deserve by keeping him in that 3 spot as opposed to going into that co-main event spot. Because in the co-main event spot, you have Rafael Sunsao, who's number 5, and Cody Garbrandt, who's number 9, and coming off at 3 straight knockout losses. Okay. So obviously they're ranked lower, but the thing is, Rafael Sunsao's been in the UFC for a long time. He's been in this division for a long time. So he's getting the money, to put him in a co-main event. And Cody Garbrandt was champ, obviously. He's a draw. So he's getting the money. He was already getting paid that money. So, they don't lose anything putting these guys in the co-main event. But either way, let's go and talk about this fight, because this one is very interesting. It's going to be, for me, I want to see how Rafael Sunsao approaches this fight, because he's a guy that's, again, well-rounded, but he has a Brazilian jiu-jitsu base. But he also lands very heavy, and as I had just mentioned, Cody Garbrandt got knocked out 3 times in a row, and he had to take a year off to, mentally collect himself. Cody Garbrandt, number 9, 11-3, all those 3 losses coming back to back to back. 2 of those are to TJ Dillashaw, which, crazy enough, he was winning both those fights. He looked like he was going to put TJ away. TJ got up, put him down. It was crazy. And Cody Garbrandt's one of those guys. He's one of the rare guys in the lower weight divisions that can just, he has power in his hands. He can knock you out. But the problem is it's his fighting style that he hasn't changed. So it's going to be interesting. How is he going to approach this after he's had to mentally recollect himself after getting knocked out 3 times straight? what's going to be your approach in this fight? Are you going to keep your hands down? Are you going to keep throwing those sloppy punches? I mean, that's part of your fight game, and that's how you knock people out. But, buddy, you're getting knocked out too doing that. So that's going to be something to watch. Is he going to come in with crisper boxing? Is he going to look good on his feet? Is he going to be protecting himself more? Is he going to be more defensive? And it's going to be a tough fight for him to do that because Rafael Sunsao is extremely patient in his striking. He'll wait for you. He'll bait you in. He'll wait for you to come in before he strikes. So it gets hard to read him, which could potentially turn Cody back to his whole old way of fighting. I say old way. We don't even know how he's going to fight yet. I'm just insinuating here, right? I believe Rafael's probably focusing on trying to take this down to the ground. I wouldn't see why he wouldn't want to do that, especially since there's a little bit of a height disadvantage here. He's 5'5" to Cody Garbrandt's 5'8", which I don't know if Cody Garbrandt's actually 5'8". I think he's more like 5'6", 5'7". You can't trust UFC.com. I'm telling you. You can't. It's terrible. All the time, Sean are like, oh, look, this guy's ranked number 5. And then you go on like every other site on Google, and it's like, oh, this guy's ranked not at all. And you're like, how did the UFC screw this up? Yeah. You're like, how did the UFC screw this up so bad? Actually, you know what happens a lot on UFC.com, which is terrible. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked here, is you'll go on to an upcoming event because, a matchup is coming up and you want to if you want to look at the stats and the matchup itself, you go on to UFC.com and you go click and you're like, where is it? It's not on here. I'm at UFC 250. This is on UFC 250. You go on Google and then you look at all the other news websites and news outlets and it's like UFC 250. This fight's happening. You're like, it's not on UFC.com. It's on 4 different sites on Google. It's not on UFC.com. Happens all the damn time. They don't even put their own fights that they make and they match on UFC.com.
So really, they have a bad monitor person. They have a bad backup person.
They need you.
They need me.
Yes.
Because
as a production
I know how to do this.
Lead.
I'm pretty good at this. I'm just being honest. I'm pretty awesome.
You're very medium.
I'll take it.
Hey, that is a fantastic compliment for your first time being production manager.
Being medium is amazing.
The only reason I say that too is because I see Facebook is going off over there with comments, and you haven't told me any of them other than
they're literally just laughing at us. They're like, "Oh wow, that's so
oh, you guys are morons."
So cool.
Yeah,
think they know what they're talking about.
Except for all of our close friends who are like, "No, this is just who they are."
That's
knuckleheads.
Finally, people get to see what we have to deal with.
So going back to this fight, Rafael, the disadvantage here, he's been around the block, man. He's fought everybody in this division, but he's also 37 years old.
Hey, people in the 30s are good.
It's pretty funny to think about it because on the one hand, you got a guy that's 37, been around the block, he's fought for a long time, and then you have Cody who knows what the rest of his career is going to look like. Like, what does getting knocked out 3 times in a row, what's that going to do to your mentality? What's that going to do to your ability to stay awake when you take a punch? I don't know. We're going to see. But anyways, Cody has yet to be taken down in the UFC. I think that's a pretty interesting stat. At least that was a stat on UFC.com. I didn't know if that was 100% true, but from the fights I watched, again, going back and analyzing these, I hadn't seen him get taken down. So that's pretty damn impressive. He fights out of alpha male. That's Uriah Faber's camp. So they have a ton of great wrestlers over there. So it wouldn't surprise me the least bit if that holds true. He's only had 2 of his UFC fights go the distance, and that was against Cruz and Briones. Many of his fights do not get out of the first. Yeah, most of his fights don't even get out of the first round. Whether he's getting knocked out in the first round lately or he's knocking people out, many of his fights do not get out of the first round.
Wow.
Yeah, and then Rafael has had the best bantamweight win streak at 7. That's not current, but he has had that before. Cody's tied second for most bantamweight knockdowns at 8. First, and then he's in first place for knockdown average per 15 minutes at 1.6. That's pretty impressive. He's averaging almost 2 knockdowns per 3-round fight, so that's pretty damn good, especially with as many fights as he had. Rafael's significant strike defense is second in the division at 68%. That is damn impressive considering the competition he has fought in that division as well. So that goes back to that point talking about Cody's focus is going to be to knock him out. He has great stand-up, Rafael has great stand-up defense. That's amazing. So, And then also, Rafael's had 2 Performance of the Night awards. And he is, let's see what this one is. No, that's not even worth mentioning. So, all right. So, quick recap for this one, because I know I was kind of all over the place talking to Whitney and all that stuff too.
Hey.
Yeah. It's really going to depend on what Cody's game plan is going to be. His game plan is going to be to strike regardless. He's not going to be wrestling, taking guys down, especially Rafael Assunção, who has such a extensive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu base and background. He's not going to be trying to take him down. I'll be more interested to see like how Rafael approaches this fight. Is he going to try and go after his chin right away because he knows it's weak, it's been broken lately? Is he going to go after that? Is he going to be patient like he usually is and wait around the outside, bait him in a little bit, feel him out, and then is he going to try and take him down? Is he going to press him up against the fence? Is he going to take him down, try and submit him, wear him out? This one it's going to be hard to call. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun one just to kind of analyze, sit back and watch and see how these guys are going to fight. This one could easily turn into a firefight real fast if Cody's able to stuff his takedowns and he starts winging punches. This one could turn into a firefight pretty fast. But for this one, me personally, I was the only one that picked Rafael for this fight. I just think like he's more tuned in. He's done better. He's had more experience fighting the top guys consistently and winning. Cody, I don't know where his mental state's going to be coming back into this fight, as I've mentioned 1,000 times at this point.
Right.
Like, I don't know where he's going to be at, so I don't have faith in him enough to pick him. But Sean and Dan do, so we'll see who's right on that one.
Right. And then the winner
fights Whitney.
The
winner
luck.
fights Amanda Nunes.
I go after the feet immediately.
You go after those tap dancing feet.
I go straight toward him. Take down.
Sound like you said like straight toward him.
Straight toward him. Get those feet.
In my snakeskin boots. Go straight toward him. That's what.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
See,
snorted. Man. Now everyone knows I snort.
many people snort when they laugh. All right. Let's get into the main event here. Let's start talking main event.
Me.
Are you guys entertained at the very least? This is my first time
I know,
just
come on,
leading
guys.
a podcast, just
Would you
talking.
rather me be on here?
No.
Not him. I mean,
You're-
like your other guests, like Dan and Sean. I mean, Dan and Sean are okay. All right. I'm number 1. I'm medium.
I miss you guys.
I hate this marriage.
No, you're locked in here. You're gonna be. You already said that you're gonna be our production manager from here on out.
I'm gonna randomly say words and things and stuff. Oh, Sean's watching now. Fuck you, Sean.
This is what we have to deal with at family dinners. Yeah, talking crap to Sean.
Always. He's so Canadian.
Sean's Canadian.
Oh, 'cause he- Oh,
If you didn't know, my brother played 2 years up in Minnesota, like right on the border of Canada.
Canada.
Because it's America and Canada mixed all in one place.
Now
I'm gone. You scared Sean right out of here. He was like,
I'm
nope,
done with you guys.
not doing
hate
this.
you guys.
I'm out. I'm gone. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns before we get on to the
Sean,
main
do you have
event?
any questions or concerns for your brother? Are you really that gone? Wow, he's so rude.
He's
Great
gone.
family.
Yeah, he didn't want to listen.
Really great family.
So the main event. This one will be awesome just to watch Amanda Nunes feast on Felicia Spencer. Amanda the Lioness Nunes is fighting.
That's a terrifying name.
Yeah. Well, and the UFC is just feeding her a sheep. They are feeding the Lioness a sheep in this fight because Felicia Spencer, hey, you know what? She's tough. She fought Chris Cyborg and was able to go to a decision in 3 rounds. She took some shots in that fight. Granted, she did cut Cyborg open, with a nice little elbow at the beginning of that fight. But, I mean, she sold out for that. To me, she wouldn't be able to do that against Amanda. Amanda's too crisp right now. She's picking all of her shots so well. They just literally had nobody else to fight. If you look at UFC doesn't really even have a 145-pound women's division. They literally made that for Chris Cyborg. They thought she was going to rule that, and they were just going to throw women at her. They didn't expect Amanda Nunes to come in, knock her out, and be the double champ. And the thing is, they don't have anybody else because Amanda Nunes has beat everybody. She has beat every woman that they've thrown in front of her. So
Wow.
Let's talk about this real quick. Felicia Spencer. Her professional record is 8-1, so she's had 9 total professional fights. All right, Amanda Nunes has had 23. Okay,
Jesus.
if we go back and look at Amanda Nunes's last 10 fights, her last 10 fights, so think about it, Felicia Spencer doesn't even have 10 fights. If we go back and look at Amanda Nunes's, it's been against, Holly Holm, Chris Cyborg, Raquel Pennington, Ronda Rousey. That's 4 of them. All those, by the way, by knockout. She fought Valentina Shevchenko twice to a decision. Won both of those. She fought Germaine de Randamie twice. Her other one was a little while ago, but beat her. I think this one was a TKO in the first round. Okay. And then she also fought Miesha Tate, who she submitted. That's the best of the best right there, other than that's not named Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and that's because she's too light to fight these women, right? Like, I mean, Amanda Nunes has fought the best of the best. She is the GOAT. Don't mix anything about that. She is the GOAT.
And
okay?
They can't find anybody else, and that's why.
They can't. Nope, they can't find anybody else to fight her. Nobody. No, the last fight, Felicia Spencer, she fought a 6-5 professional fighter. 6-5. And she's about to go against the woman's GOAT, who's 19-4. Not to mention, she's much bigger than her. Amanda Nunes is 5'8". You're looking at Felicia Spencer, who's 5'6".
She agreed to it.
Oh, well, I mean, if you're Felicia Spencer, what do you have to lose? I mean, this could put your name on the map, and everybody has a puncher's chance.
To lose your face.
I don't think she cares about that. I hate to say this, but I'm not impressed with Felicia Spencer, man. She started Taekwondo when she was 12. I was kind of, doing some research on her before her fight career. She started doing Taekwondo when she was 12, picked up kickboxing when she was 17, picked up wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a little bit later. But she looks like she has a wrestling base. She doesn't look like she's a striker. Mm-hmm. Like, to know that she's been striking since she was 12 is shocking if you watch her fight. So I'm just not impressed with her athletic ability against somebody as athletically inclined as Amanda Nunes is, especially in the striking game. She's gonna pick her apart. Look at what she did to Holly Holm.
Yes.
Holly Holm is.
I love Holly Holm.
Yeah, Holly Holm's a great fight. She's a great kickboxer, if nothing else. And she's in and out. She's in and out. I actually called that fight before Amanda Nunes knocked her out, because if she picked up Holly Holm's pattern, putting her hand down, moving to the right, leaving her head open, and she ended up taking advantage of that. I think it was in the second round. Knocked her clean out. Nobody's done that that's tough to do against Holly. Right. All right.
I love Holly. Especially,
she's had multiple titles in other divisions in boxing and kickboxing for women's fighting. So Let's just run down some of these before I break down the fight even more. So, Amanda Nunes tied 9th overall so this is men and women in the UFC for a 10-fight win streak currently that she's on. She's in 7th place for 7 title fight wins overall. And again, this is men and women's. And if she wins this one, she'll be tied with Jose Aldo and Randy Couture with 8. Okay, Amanda is first in women's bantamweight in so many categories. I just had to list them all out. Total fights, wins, finishes, knockouts, even Bear's excited about that. Knockouts, TKOs, win streak, title fights, knockdowns landed, striking differential. She's in first in the category for bantamweight. All right, the most popular division for women in all those categories. Pretty much the only categories she's not first in are grappling related. All right. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, and I mean, really, the most notable stuff that Felicia Spencer has done is she submitted Megan Anderson, but that's it. Not necessarily as impressive as we would have thought before Megan Anderson came to the division. Before she came to the UFC, we thought she had the potential to be a superstar, but even Holly Holm out-wrestled her.
Holly Holm can fight anity. I love her.
I love her too, but she's not a wrestler, and she out-wrestled Megan Anderson. So the fact that Felicia Spencer out-wrestled her, good, not great. To show me. And then she fought Chris Cyborg, which again, she went to decision on that one. Yeah, she's a terrifying woman. The only thing that so Felicia Spencer did 2 things. The only good thing she did was she landed an elbow to open up. But again, she sold out for that. Her hands were everywhere. She just leaped in. She landed nice. She cut her open. But she took shot after shot after shot from Cyborg. Yeah, Cyborg just put the combos on her. Yeah, Cyborg. I know. It's pretty. That's a sick name. But again, like, this is just feeding a sheep to the lioness here. That's all the UFC's doing.
Now.
Yeah, 100%. You should. Everybody should.
Immediately when she walks in, she's gonna look at her. She's gonna pass out. Like,
Again, like Felicia Spencer, the only thing she's got going for her, she's tough as nails. So if maybe she can wear Amanda out by getting punched in the face a ton, and Amanda
you
gets
said
tired.
she wrestles or doesn't wrestle?
Yeah, she does wrestle.
She's probably just gonna wrestle the whole entire time to tire her out.
My thing is, Amanda Nunes is so strong, and she's much bigger than her. I don't think that she's going to be able to get inside. Oh, no. She's probably going to try.
The whole entire time. Tire her out and then try to hit her, but watch it. It won't.
Amanda Nunes is also great off her back. She trains out of Top Team. Oh, that actually, Felicia Spencer, so she trains out of Jungle MMA up in Orlando. So that's I forgot all the coaches there. I know Seth Petrozelli trains there. If you don't know him, he was the one that originally knocked out Kimbo Slice moving backwards and folded Elite XC. That was a whole like other fight division. They had banked on. They paid Kimbo Slice a ton of money because they thought he was going to be their superstar. And then in their first fight, Seth Petrozelli just knocked him out. Local guy too. So, awesome. But she trains out of the Jungle MMA. In Orlando, Amanda Nunes, both Florida fighters. She trains out of Top Team. So Amanda Nunes is going to be great at wrestling defense because that's what Top Team does, wrestling, mostly a lot of. And then she's going to be good off her back, man. She's got jiu-jitsu skills. So there's really nothing that Felicia Spencer has to offer other than taking a bunch of shots and wearing Amanda out that way.
Hope the best for her. She'll die, but I hope the best for her.
We don't hope anybody dies here.
No, she's going to die.
Not on this show. We don't hope anybody. Nope.
I'm not hoping. I'm saying she's going to die. Can't say those things? Just kidding.
Yep.
Can I drink my water now?
This is where our show has gone. I have nobody to blame but myself for my problems.
Well, you were going to be successful.
Oh, man. All right. I'm going to have some shit.
Let's talk about aliens.
So, we had that podcast already.
That was fun.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else more to say. If you know, so funny enough, when I forgot to mention this earlier. So I mentioned that we're part of fanstreamsports.com. The lead, JP Peterson, he has his radio show up in Tampa. I had mentioned the 3 channels that he's on. He's on 2 FM, 1 AM. I'm on there on Tuesdays from 3:45 to 4, or maybe even 4 to 4:15, just for like a quick 15-minute segment and stuff. But like one of the things we talked about is like, not a lot of people like watching women historically. Like even Dana White, before Ronda Rousey came on the scene, was like, women will never fight in the UFC. And then he saw the star potential in Ronda Rousey. I'm totally against that because I think the women put on amazing fights because they have much more to prove. To your point, like people on the undercard have a lot to prove, so they fight harder. To me, that's what the women do. And the thing is, like, you have a lot of you have a big skill gap because there's not as much competition for women as there is for men, because obviously like more men participate in like sports at the higher level than women do. So you don't have as many women, and there can be a skill gap there, but man, like the women put on a show. And if you aren't a fan of women, all I'm going to say is go onto YouTube, type in Amanda Nunes highlights, and just watch like a 2-minute clip of her knocking people out. And if you're not sold on that, I don't know what else to tell you, but she is damn entertaining. So I think
they're all entertaining.
Yeah.
I don't know why he would ever think that, maybe because they were scared to put it in, because maybe there'll be a huge argument about the fact that women are fighting. I don't know why they would think that that's not entertaining.
Dana White's a money man. He's a old school Massachusetts, like
mass hole.
He's just like old school boxing mentality. Women aren't going to sell fights, blah 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 blah.
And I kind of feel like, well, he was in love. He loved Ronda Rousey. Is that her name?
Oh yeah, he definitely loved Ronda Rousey.
No, Holly Holmes and everybody else is way better than her. She's not.
I think
she's not a very good sportsmanship kind of person.
No, I'm not. Like, it's mixed feelings because on the one hand, like you have to give Ronda Rousey her props, and it's the same. Like I'm not a big fan of Dana White, but I also have to give him his props for shooting the UFC into the stratosphere. Right. I mean, it's the same thing with Ronda Rousey as she opened up a gateway for women that you can like
Right.
watching fight, like Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes.
I'll give her that.
Yes.
But I feel like she was a
very poor sport.
Yes.
Very poor sport. You can't play the bad guy and then when you start losing, scream back at the world.
And get
angry,
suicidal or something like that. Wasn't she like kind of talking like that?
She was playing the pity game.
That's a little much.
She was, and the other thing too that people didn't like was she was getting preferential treatment. Like, a lot of fighters have been getting in trouble for years for not making pressers before the fights. I mean, I don't blame them because you have to travel all over the world to do these press conferences, and you're like, dude, I'm fighting a guy in a cage here soon.
Right.
Fighting guy or woman, whatever. Right. I'm fighting somebody in a cage here soon. I want to train, and you have media obligations to go around the world and travel and do all these pressers.
Right.
And then when she came off of her loss, she was so distraught. She was so upset. She was like, I don't want to do pressers. I just want to focus. And Sam was like, no, you don't worry. You're going through some stuff. Do it.
That's
Meanwhile, everybody else is getting fined for not showing up.
That's not right.
No, it's not right. And just the way she handled everything after she started losing, she was a poor sport. I think the good thing at that time was that Conor McGregor had lost his fight against Nate Diaz around that same time, because you can watch how two different people who are charged in two different ways react. Because when Conor McGregor lost, he said, I want to get back in that cage tomorrow and I want to fight Nate Diaz. Are you going to do it at lightweight? No, I want to do it at welterweight again. So when I beat him this time, he can't say, oh, well, you fought me at a lower weight. He's like, I want to do all the same rules, the same weight, same everything, and beat him. Ronda Rousey went into hiding. She played the pity game in the media.
Yep.
And on social media.
It's hard to respect someone like that.
Yeah, and then she ended up, she went on a 2-3 fight losing streak, and then she ditched the UFC. She couldn't handle losing.
Fake fighting.
Oh, she's already lost her fans over there too, from what I've read.
It's so stupid. How do you go from that to
she talks like, I know that they trash talk and stuff, but she's been very open about like how fake it is and how those women are weak and all that stuff like that. Like, you can't, like, how are you gonna trash that whole? I mean, come on, man. Like, I'm not a wrestling fan at all.
But if you beat her, then she'll cry. She'll talk really bad about you until you beat her, and then she'll cry and go into hiding again.
Yeah. So again, for her, it's all about the preferential treatment that I didn't like. Dana White clearly showed her that. Whatever. But, on the flip side, though, she did open up this path for women like Amanda Nunes, who just absolutely blew up on the scene and is absolutely the GOAT for women. 100%.
Woo-hoo!
So
go women beating them
watch
out.
this fight. This is going to be an entertaining card. People watch it June 6th, coming up this weekend. It'll be fun. And again, I apologize for some of the audio issues we've had. Again, every time I change something on here, like we're doing different formatting, whatever it is, I always seem to screw something up on here. So this past Sunday, we had audio for ourselves through Skype. But then when we went live, we didn't realize that it wasn't going through the channels it needed to, so it would get out to you. So that's why I want to do this one. That's why I have Whitney. She actually yelled at me. She's like, you're not doing that anymore. You're not touching all this stuff anymore. You're just going to focus on talking, and that's it.
You got to make sure everything's on point.
Yeah.
Once we get off here, nothing.
It's like, no.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. That was bad. Oh, actually, there was one other news story before I close up shop here. There was one other news story I wanted to talk about. Sean had brought this up because I didn't even realize this. I didn't even read about it. But the Reebok deal, which has been very controversial, is going to be up at the end of 2020. And Dana White's actually said that he's talking about moving on to another brand. So if you're not familiar with this, fighters used to they used to get their own sponsors. That's why you would see funny stuff like a sponsorship from Condom Depot on the back of guys' shorts.
The back of it.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. They had their own sponsors. Like Demetrius Johnson was sponsored by Xbox, so he wore green shorts. He had the logo on there. Anderson Silva was sponsored by Burger King and Nike. GSP by Under Armour. These guys had all these big sponsorships, and then the UFC decides back however many, I don't know if it's been 4 or 5 years at this point, however long it's been, that they're going to do a full league sponsorship by Reebok. And the problem is that the fighters no longer can use their sponsors in cage, so they automatically start losing a ton of money right away because they have to wear Reebok gear. They can't wear they can't have Nike or Under Armour or something on their flag. They can't have any other sponsors because then that will be considered associated with Reebok and all that stuff. So they had most of their sponsorships wiped away. Some sponsors were amazing. Like I think Demetrius Johnson was saying that Xbox kept them, which is fantastic. It's a ton of money. Like if you want to put this in perspective, so Vitor Belfort, UFC legend, Pride legend of the sport, he was saying that he made $150,000 per fight on sponsorships. That's almost as much as he gets paid to fight. I mean, He probably was getting paid $300,000, but by the time you take out, but here's the thing though, this is the difference, is by the time you take out your manager's 10% cut, you take out your camp's cut, because your camp doesn't usually charge you, they just ask for a percentage of your fight wins, right? The money that you paid people to come in and train with you, all right? All this money that you have ditched out, you're losing a lot of that. So that's what the sponsorships would essentially do for these guys, is at least make up for that money that they're losing by paying their managers and all this stuff. So lo and behold, everybody's been upset. People have lost a ton of money the last 4 or 5 years. And surprisingly, Dana White has said, we're going to look for a different sponsor that'll allow still the fighters to go out and get their own sponsors. This is going to be interesting. I don't know if he's just trying to call Reebok out and try and do a negotiation tactic, kind of like the UFC fighters do with him, where they're like, all right, I quit. I'm retiring. I'm done. Peace out. And he's like, no, wait, come back. I'll pay you your money. I don't know if he's doing that with Reebok, but if I had to guess, because I sat and thought about this a little bit, the UFC's never gone backwards. Like if you look at their TV deals, all those years ago, they started out on Spike TV was where they were at. Then they moved to Fox. Now they're on ESPN. So they've progressed with each new TV deal. So for me, they're going, if they're really leaving Reebok, they're not going to re-sign with them. Who are they going to go get? Are they going to be able to get an Adidas, who Reebok is a subsidiary of Adidas? Are they going to go get Adidas? Are they going to go get a Nike? Are they going to go get an Under Armour for their next one? It's going to be interesting, because the thing is, a lot of those bigger brands, I don't know if they're going to allow fighters to go out, and if they're going to be okay with fighters going out and getting a lot of these sponsorships. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that works and what happens. To me, it would be interesting. I'd like to see if Nike actually throws their hat in the ring for this. That'd be very interesting to me.
That'd be interesting.
Reason being is Nike's lost some of their college football sponsorships, which was a big piece of what they've had, to Adidas, nonetheless, who's historically been a soccer, soccer focused. So I don't know. Under Armour also has a big chance here. So we'll see. I'm sick of the Reebok. Reebok hasn't done anything impressive. They haven't. I'm not a big Reebok fan. They were going out. Adidas bought them out a few years ago because they were going out of business. They haven't done anything impressive to me, clothing, equipment wise, none of that stuff. They haven't done anything well.
I root for Under
Armour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Under Armour has good equipment. I would like to see them. I'd be interested to see if, like I said, a bigger player like Nike is going to jump in, throw their hat into the ring. It's going to be interesting. So I'm really keeping my fingers crossed for this. Fighter pay is always a major topic in the UFC. These guys don't get paid enough. I mean, like I told you, the guys on an undercard, $8,000 to show up. If they win, they get another $8,000.
Right.
And just think about that. Maybe they might fight 2 or 3 times a year. Okay?
Right.
And then on top of that, you take out a 10% cut for their managers. However much they're paying their camps,
right,
et cetera, taxes, living life. That's not a lot of money, baby.
Yeah.
Not a lot of money. So I'm hoping these guys get their sponsorships back. Fingers
Hopefully.
crossed.
Fingers crossed, baby.
Otherwise, thank you everybody for tuning in.
Woo!
What? Whitney,
awesome.
Thank you for helping out tonight. That was awesome.
We're not done yet. Let's get out of this and then make sure everything went well.
Well, we went live, so the video's somewhere. It's on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook right now. Oh, another favor for all of our fans that are watching. We're really trying to grow the network. We're at about 100 views per episode right now consistently, which has been pretty good. You're listening to or download our podcast on Apple or what's the other one? iHeart. Any of those other, if you could just leave us a rating and a comment or something like that, help kind of boost our page, that'd be so awesome. I'd really appreciate that. We're really trying to boost our viewership this year. That's kind of been that was our 2020 goal coming into 2020. We had a few goals come into place, having more people on the show and all that stuff, but obviously with everything that went on, that came to a screeching halt. So
right.
being a part of FanStream Sports has been awesome, though. We have our own page on there. If you go to fanstreamsports.com, there's nothing crazy about the spelling. It's literally as it sounds. There's a bunch of great podcasts on there. JP is entertaining as hell to listen to. And we have our own page on there, so you can also tune in to us over there. It's not hard to find us.
Not at all.
But yeah, if you guys can leave us any kind of likes, comments, any of that stuff, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Greatly appreciated. And if you don't, it's okay, because we know who you are.
No, we don't know who they are because they didn't comment.
Damn.
Yeah.
I just wanted to scare them.
Yeah, but you
feel
did.
like they need to.
That was my first thought. My first thought was, Whitney, if I didn't comment, then you don't know where to find me or who I am. Whitney will find you.
I will just know. I'll just know.
She has a very particular set of skills.
Good luck.
I can't do Liam Neeson's voice, but...
You try, baby. That's all that matters.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Again, just wanted to catch up. Sean and Dan, apologies that you guys couldn't make it, but...
Dan's asleep and Sean ran away.
Yeah, Sean ran away because you call him a Canadian.
I'm a Canadian.
And then we'll probably see you guys on a Sunday for a recap of UFC 250. So, everybody, have a great rest of your week. Peace out. Much love.
Much love.